Evan Carter stared at the view screen of the small shuttle as it drifted closer to the strange object in space. It was not marked on any chart, and the readings from the nebula surrounding it were unusual. The colors swirled in shades of purple and green, and the shuttle's instruments kept giving strange signals. He had seen many strange things in his years of space exploration, but this felt different. There was something alive about the place. Something that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Beside him, Lieutenant Carla Benson checked the shuttle's systems. She was calm, professional, and always focused, but even she seemed tense. "Evan," she said quietly, "the readings are unstable. Whatever that is, it's not just a rock or debris. There's energy here. Maybe even a ship." Evan nodded. "That's why we're here. We need to investigate. Standard procedure. Scan, record, report, and leave if it's dangerous." He tried to keep his voice steady, but his own heartbeat was rising. The shuttle moved closer to the massive object that now came into full view. It was enormous, easily the size of a small city, and its surface was smooth but shifting, almost like liquid metal. Strange patterns glowed across it, pulsing rhythmically. The shuttle's sensors went wild. "Evan," Carla whispered, "whatever it is, it's huge. And it's moving." Evan felt a shiver run through him. The ship had no visible engines, no exhaust. It moved silently, almost alive. Then, without warning, a beam of light shot out from the alien ship, surrounding the shuttle. The controls locked, and alarms blared. "They've caught us," Evan said, gripping the console. The shuttle was pulled toward the alien ship as if it were a magnet. Inside the massive vessel, everything was quiet and strange. Evan's eyes widened as he was led into a large chamber. The walls shimmered, almost like water, but solid. Strange symbols moved across the surfaces, and the air smelled faintly metallic. He felt a presence, powerful and commanding, before he even saw her. Then she appeared, Empress Virai. She was taller than any human, graceful, and her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Her skin shimmered like polished bronze, and she wore a robe that seemed to shift colors with her movements. She studied Evan carefully, her gaze sharp and intense. "You are human," she said. Her voice was melodic but carried authority. "Few of your kind have ever come here. Fewer still survive the first encounter." Evan bowed slightly. "I am Evan Carter, xenolinguist and captain of the shuttle team. We received a distress signal and came to investigate." Virai tilted her head. "A curious species. You speak boldly even when surrounded by power you do not understand. Many would have knelt or begged. You do neither." She circled him, her movements smooth and deliberate. "Tell me, human, do you know the choice that stands before you?" Evan frowned. "Choice? You may fight me," Virai said, her eyes narrowing, "in the ritual of dominance. Or you may accept the bond I offer. Choose wisely, for the wrong choice may mean death. Not only for you, but for your crew." Evan felt a cold sweat on his forehead. Fighting her meant certain death. He could see the sheer energy radiating from her. Humans were fragile, unarmed, and untrained for something like this. And yet, he had a strange sense of calm. He could not explain it, but he did not feel fear the way he should. He swallowed and looked directly at her. "I choose the bond." The room went quiet. Virai's eyes widened slightly, and then a smile, almost imperceptible, crossed her face. "You choose." Differently than I expected. Few humans have courage enough to face the impossible and not lash out. You intrigue me. Evan's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay composed. "I do not wish to fight. I only wish to protect my crew." Virai studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "So be it. You will enter the bond. But know this, human. The bond is not simple. It is a union of purpose, loyalty, and understanding. You will learn our ways. You will live among us. And you will prove your worth not by strength alone, but by your mind and spirit. Evan's mind raced. Living among these aliens was risky. He did not know what they expected of him, but he also knew he had no other choice if he wanted to save his crew. "I understand," he said. Virai gestured, and a small group of aliens stepped forward. They were humanoid, but taller and stronger, their movements precise. "Take him to the quarters. He will begin the lessons." "Observe him closely," she commanded. The aliens led Evan through corridors that seemed to shift and flow. The walls were smooth and reflective, and the floors emitted a faint hum. The corridors were larger than anything on his ship. He could see strange shapes moving just beyond the walls, almost like shadows alive with energy. Finally, they reached a chamber that was clearly designated for him. The room was minimalistic but elegant. A platform in the center glowed softly, and the walls displayed symbols that moved constantly. One of the aliens spoke in a soft tone, which Evan somehow understood. "You will learn. You will adapt. Do not resist." Evan nodded, though he did not fully understand. He stepped onto the platform, and a gentle hum vibrated through his body. Suddenly, images and sensations filled his mind. Alien history, culture, and language. It was overwhelming. But he focused. He had learned many languages in his life, and he had studied alien behavior. This was different, but he tried to adapt. Hours passed, or maybe days. He could not tell. The room seemed timeless. When the visions faded, he was exhausted, but more aware. He could understand fragments of their language, their hierarchy, and even some of their thought patterns. He realized the bond was not just about physical presence, it was about connecting minds in subtle ways. Later, he met Mira Lane, a human who had been captured earlier and now lived among the Xyrath. Mira smiled faintly when she saw him. "I've been here long enough to know that the Empress does not give bonds lightly. You've survived the first test, but the real challenges are just beginning." Evan nodded. "I will do whatever it takes. I only want to protect the crew and understand her." Mira studied him. "Good. You'll need more than courage. You'll need patience, insight, and the ability to see the world as they do. If you fail, it's not just your life, it's everyone's back on your shuttle." Evan clenched his fists. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him, but he also felt a spark of determination. He had always believed humans could rise to the challenge, even in the face of impossible odds. Over the next days, Evan began to learn the ways of the Xyrath. He studied their rituals, their combat traditions, and their philosophy. He realized that strength alone did not command respect. The Xyrath admired intelligence, cunning, and emotional honesty. He practiced communicating with Virai not as a subordinate, but as a partner in thought. It was a delicate balance, and he often made mistakes. But he also saw glimpses of understanding in her eyes. Virai tested him constantly. Sometimes it was with words, other times with tasks that seemed simple, but had hidden consequences. "If you act without thought," she said once, "you will fail. If you act without courage, you are nothing. Find the balance, human." Evan tried to remember those words every day. He realized that surviving this bond required more than cleverness. It required understanding the heart of the Xyrath culture, their fears, and their pride. He began to see Virai not only as a ruler, but as a being shaped by responsibilities, victories, and betrayals. She had endured much, and her confidence was both armor and shield. One evening, while observing the stars from a high balcony, Evan spoke quietly to himself. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted, "but I have to try. If humans are to survive, we have to learn, even from those who seem impossible to understand." As if in answer, Virai appeared behind him. "You speak honestly, human. That is why you are alive. Many would hide fear, but you do not. You face it." Her voice was softer now, and for a moment, Evan saw a flicker of something human in her eyes. Curiosity, Perhaps even respect. I only want to survive, he said honestly. And I want my crew to survive. That is why I chose the bond. Virai nodded, but her expression was unreadable. We shall see if your choice was wise. The universe does not forgive mistakes lightly. Prepare yourself, Evan Carter. The tests ahead will challenge everything you know about life, loyalty, and strength. Evan looked out at the stars again, feeling a mixture of fear and hope. This was only the beginning. The galaxy was larger, stranger, and more dangerous than anything humans had faced, yet he felt a strange confidence. Humans had always adapted, always fought, always found hope where others saw none. The shuttle crew waited, unaware of the incredible challenges their captain faced. Evan would have to navigate a world of alien customs, dangerous politics, and powerful beings, all while protecting those he cared about. And in the midst of it all, he had chosen a path few humans would dare, a path of understanding and alliance, rather than destruction. Above him, the alien stars shimmered like eyes watching, waiting to see if the human could survive, and perhaps even thrive in a galaxy ruled by power far beyond his imagination. Evan Carter took a deep breath. This was his first day in a new world, and the adventure had only just begun. Evan Carter woke to a soft glow filling the chamber. The alien light changed colors, shifting slowly from blue to green, casting long shadows on the smooth walls. He had slept poorly, his mind filled with visions of strange rituals and lessons from the Empress Virai. His body ached from the strange exercises and the hours of mental training, but he felt a strange sense of alertness, as if the ship itself wanted him awake. Mira Lane was already waiting outside the chamber. "Good morning," she said, smiling faintly. "You look tired." "I am," Evan admitted. "This place, it's unlike anything I've known. I keep feeling like I'm being tested even when I'm resting." "That's because you are," Mira said, her tone gentle but serious. "Virai does not give bonds lightly. You are learning not just to survive, but to think like them. Every action you take, every word you speak, is noticed." Evan nodded. He had begun to understand the weight of the situation. Every step he took could either earn him respect or make him fail. "How long have you been here?" he asked. "Too long," Mira said with a small laugh, though it was tinged with sadness. "I was captured months ago. At first, it felt impossible. But then I learned their ways. You must do the same if you want to survive." Evan followed Mira down long corridors. The ship seemed to pulse with life, almost breathing. The walls shimmered in soft waves, and symbols moved like liquid light across their surfaces. He still did not understand how they worked, but he had learned to observe carefully. The Xyrath valued observation as much as strength. They entered a large hall where other Xyrath were gathered. The aliens were taller than humans, with graceful movements and glowing eyes. Some carried weapons that looked like they were made of light. Others stood silently, watching everything around them. Evan felt a rush of anxiety. These beings were immensely powerful, and yet he stood among them, human and fragile. Virai appeared at the far end of the hall. She moved with effortless grace, her presence commanding the attention of everyone. When she saw Evan, she nodded slightly, as if to acknowledge his progress. "Today, you begin the lessons in diplomacy," Virai said, her voice carrying easily across the hall. "The universe is not conquered by strength alone. You must learn to speak, to understand, to anticipate. You will meet our leaders and present your knowledge of your species. Do not fail." Evan swallowed hard. He had dealt with human diplomats before, but these were not humans. He had no idea how to predict their reactions or read their intentions. Yet he felt a spark of confidence. He had always believed that humans could adapt, and he would prove it. The first alien he met was Commander Jules, a tall, stern figure whose presence was almost as powerful as Virai's. Jules' eyes glowed a brighter red, and he exuded tension and authority. "So, the human survives the first trial," Jules said, his voice low and sharp. "Tell me, Evan Carter, why should I believe you are worthy to speak among the Xyrath?" Evan held his ground. Because I am honest. And because I understand that survival depends on more than strength. Humans can adapt. And we can contribute knowledge and perspective. I only ask to be heard. End quote. Jules laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Bold words. Many humans have tried to survive among the Zyreth and failed. They relied on strength or fear. You speak differently. Perhaps you are a curiosity. Nothing more. Virai stepped forward. He is more than a curiosity, Jules. Observe him before you dismiss him. Humans think differently. That difference can be a strength. Evan felt the tension in the room, but he remained calm. He knew that showing fear or anger would be dangerous. Instead, he focused on understanding the Zyreth behavior. Every gesture, every tone, could give him insight. For hours, the aliens questioned him. They asked about human culture, history, and technology. They challenged his ideas and his reasoning. Evan answered carefully, always honest, always aware of the subtle signals in their behavior. He made mistakes, but he also earned small nods of approval. By the end of the session, he felt exhausted, but more confident. Afterward, Mira guided him through a quiet corridor. You did well, she said. Zul is difficult, but you passed the first test of diplomacy. The Zyreth respect honesty and cleverness. Do not forget that. Evan nodded. It feels like every day is a test. I worry about my crew. I don't know what's happening to them. They are being watched, Mira explained. Virai is protecting them. In a way. You cannot rescue them yet. But your actions here will decide their fate. Keep that in mind. The next days were filled with lessons. Evan learned about Zyreth rituals, their combat techniques, and their philosophy of leadership. He practiced their forms of martial movement, not to fight directly, but to understand timing, balance, and focus. Every session left him sore, but he grew stronger, sharper, and more aware. One afternoon, Virai summoned him to a private chamber. The room was circular, with a high ceiling and walls that shifted color as he moved. She stood in the center, waiting. You are improving, she said. You are beginning to see not only the surface of our world, but the patterns beneath. Tell me, human, what do you think of us now? Evan paused. You are powerful and proud. You are cautious and sometimes harsh. But you are also capable of curiosity and respect. I see your strength, but I also see your vulnerabilities. Virai's eyes widened slightly. Vulnerabilities? You can see them? Humans are fragile. Most cannot see beyond the surface. I do not look for weakness to exploit. Evan said honestly. I look to understand. I believe survival depends on understanding, not just power. Virai considered this, and for the first time, her posture softened slightly. Perhaps that is why you live. You see beyond what others miss. But do not be mistaken. The galaxy does not forgive mistakes lightly. You will face dangers that cannot be solved with words alone. Evan nodded. I understand. I will do what I must. Over time, Evan began to form a connection with Virai. It was not friendship in the human sense, but it was trust and mutual recognition. He learned her moods, her patterns, and her expectations. He began to anticipate her challenges and respond with careful insight rather than fear. Yet the Zyreth were not united in their support. Commander Jules and his faction watched him closely. They whispered among themselves that humans were weak, that the Empress was foolish to bond with one. Evan sensed their hostility and knew that sooner or later he would face direct opposition. One evening, while observing the stars from the balcony, Evan spoke to Mira. Do you think Jules will act against her? Against me? He already is, Mira said quietly. He just waits for the right moment. You must be ready. Humans are unpredictable. But you must learn to predict the unpredictable. That is how you survive here. Evan clenched his fists. The pressure was immense, but he felt a strange exhilaration. He had faced danger before. But this was different. Here, every action mattered. Not just for survival, but for diplomacy, for understanding, and for the future of his crew and his planet. Days later, Virai brought Evan to a training arena. The space was enormous, circular, with glowing symbols etched into the floor. Aliens practiced combat, their movements precise and fluid. Today, you will learn more than combat, Virai said. You will learn strategy, improvisation, and the value of observation. Stand with me. Evan followed her instructions, observing as she demonstrated forms of movement that were part dance, part battle. Each gesture carried meaning, each step precise. Focus on timing, on reading your opponent, Virai instructed. Do not rely on strength alone. Strength without understanding is weakness. Evan tried to follow. He stumbled at first, his human body unaccustomed to their movements, but he gradually found rhythm. He realized that the training was teaching him patience, observation, and adaptability, the same lessons needed for diplomacy. After the session, Virai pulled him aside. You are learning quickly. That pleases me. But know this. Jules watches. He sees every action. If you make a mistake, he will exploit it. Trust and loyalty are your weapons here, more than any skill or strength. Evan nodded. I understand. I will be careful. Virai studied him for a long moment. You are unusual, Evan Carter. You face danger not with arrogance, but with thought. Few humans are like you. Perhaps that is why I chose you. Evan felt a strange warmth at her words. It was not affection, not yet, but it was recognition. He realized that surviving here would require him to continue building this bond, to prove his worth not just through courage but through insight, patience, and loyalty. Later, he returned to his quarters, exhausted but determined. He thought about the crew on the shuttle, about the humans who had never left Earth, and about the vast galaxy beyond. He understood now that the challenges ahead were not just tests of strength, they were tests of character. Evan lay down, staring at the glowing ceiling. Tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to prove himself. He closed his eyes, knowing that each day he survived brought him closer to understanding the Xyrath, to protecting his crew, and to surviving in a universe that demanded more than courage. It demanded heart, mind, and spirit. He did not know what dangers awaited, but he felt ready. Humans had always faced the impossible, and he would continue that legacy. In this alien world, among beings more powerful than he could have imagined, he had chosen understanding over violence, patience over fear, and trust over despair. That choice would shape the days to come, and perhaps the fate of two worlds. Evan Carter woke to the sound of alarms. The chamber was bathed in red light, and the hum of the ship felt different, tense, and urgent. He sat up quickly, his heart racing. Something was wrong. Mira Lane appeared at the door, her face pale but determined. Evan, she said, grabbing his arm. It's Jules. He's moving against the Empress. He's starting a coup. We have no time. Evan's mind raced. He had expected hostility from Jules, but he had hoped to prepare first. Now, the danger was immediate. He followed Mira down the corridors, the strange walls shifting and glowing under their feet. Everywhere, Xyrath soldiers were moving, some loyal, some following Jules' orders. The tension in the air was palpable. When they reached the main hall, chaos had erupted. Soldiers clashed with one another, disruptor beams cutting through the air. The Empress stood at the center, commanding the loyalists. Her presence calm, yet commanding amid the chaos. Evan froze for a moment, then realized he had to act. He looked around, observing the patterns of movement. The Xyrath were disciplined, but the coup had created confusion. He could use this. Using what he had learned from the Empress, he began signaling to the loyalists, pointing out weak points in Jules' strategy. He guided small groups to flank the insurgents, using human tactics combined with his knowledge of Xy'rith behavior. Jules noticed him. "The human dares to intervene!" Jules shouted, charging forward, his glowing eyes filled with fury. He was a formidable fighter, trained for years to dominate both in battle and in court. Evan knew he could not match Jules in strength, but he could use his mind. He dodged, guided others to distract Jules, and created openings for Virai. Virai moved like a shadow, her strikes precise and powerful. She confronted Jules directly while Evan coordinated the defense, guiding soldiers with careful instructions. For a moment, it seemed impossible. Jules was fast, cunning, and ruthless, but Evan's strategies gave the Loyalists an advantage. During the fight, Evan realized something critical. The coup was not only physical, it was political. Many of the Xy'rith soldiers were undecided, unsure which side to take. Evan needed to inspire them, to show that loyalty and unity were stronger than fear. He stepped onto a raised platform, his voice amplified by the hall's systems. "Soldiers of the Xy'rith," he shouted. "Look around you. Chaos only serves those who betray your Empress. Stand together. Protect your leader. Protect your people. Strength is not only in power, it is in loyalty, in courage, in choice." The soldiers paused. Evan could see the hesitation in their eyes. They were not used to a human speaking with such clarity and confidence. Slowly, many turned toward the Loyalists, inspired by the human who dared to guide them. Jules growled, enraged. "You interfere in matters you do not understand." He lunged at Evan, but the human dodged, using the training he had learned from Virai. He led Jules into a trap, where Virai and her loyal soldiers confronted him together. The battle was fierce. Jules fought with all his strength, but Evan's guidance and the soldiers' loyalty turned the tide. Finally, Virai struck a decisive blow, disarming Jules and bringing him to his knees. Evan stepped forward, carefully holding him back from escaping. The hall fell silent as all eyes turned to the human who had helped save the Empress and the Dominion. Virai approached Evan, her expression unreadable at first. Then she smiled slightly. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have protected me, our people, and shown courage and wisdom beyond your kind. Today, you have earned not only respect but trust." Evan felt a rush of relief and pride. The danger had passed, but he knew it had only been the beginning. Jules was defeated for now, but the challenges of the galaxy were far from over. After the battle, Virai held a council with her loyalists. She formally acknowledged Evan's role, speaking of his courage, strategy, and insight. "The human has proven that alliance and understanding can be as strong as power and weapons," she declared. "Let this be a lesson to all who doubt the strength of cooperation." Evan watched as the Xy'rith responded, some with surprise, some with respect. He realized that humans, though physically weaker, could make a difference with intelligence, courage, and morality. He had proven the value of his species not through force, but through strategy, observation, and integrity. Later, in private, Virai spoke to him. "Evan, tell me honestly," she said, her voice softer now. "Why did you choose the bond instead of fighting? You could have survived if you had chosen to attack, but you chose to understand." Evan looked at her calmly. "I knew fighting you would lead to death, and I could not risk my crew. But more than that, I believed that survival depends on more than power. It depends on understanding, on respect, and on courage in the right form." Virai studied him, and for the first time, Evan saw a flicker of emotion in her glowing eyes, something akin to admiration. Few humans have the clarity to choose wisely. Many act from fear or anger. You act from insight. That is rare. Evan smiled faintly. "I only hope it is enough to protect everyone." Virai extended her hand, a gesture of trust and recognition. "It is enough, and it may be the beginning of a new era for the Dominion and your people." The days that followed were filled with rebuilding and reconciliation. Loyalists worked to restore order. while the defeated coup members were confined under careful watch. Evan helped Virai navigate the political landscape, advising her on diplomacy and human perspective. His role was unique, not a ruler, not a soldier, but a bridge between two worlds. Evan also continued learning about the Zyreth culture. He learned their art, their history, and their philosophy. He discovered that their society valued honor, loyalty, and wisdom. Physical strength was admired, but it was clear that the mind and the heart were equally powerful. As trust grew between him and Virai, their bond deepened. It was not love in the human sense yet, but it was a connection of understanding and respect. They could anticipate each other's thoughts, share silent strategies, and communicate with gestures and subtle cues. Evan realized that this bond was the key to survival, not only for himself but for the humans he represented. One day, while they were observing the stars together from the balcony of the flagship, Virai spoke quietly. "Evan, you have chosen a path few would dare. You chose to understand instead of fight, to protect instead of attack. Why did you make that choice?" Evan thought for a moment. "Because I believe that fear and violence are not the only ways to survive. Sometimes understanding and trust are stronger than weapons. I wanted to protect my crew, yes, but I also wanted to prove that humans can rise to the challenge, even in a world far beyond what we know." Virai nodded slowly, as if absorbing the depth of his words. "Perhaps this is why you live, Evan Carter. You have not only survived but changed the hearts of those around you. That is more powerful than any sword or disruptor." Evan smiled faintly. Looking at the vast galaxy stretching before them, he had come to this strange, dangerous world expecting to be a prisoner, to face tests and trials. Instead, he had found purpose, challenge, and an opportunity to shape the future. Humans were fragile, yes, but they were clever, adaptable, and courageous. And he had proven that even in a galaxy ruled by power and dominance, a human could make a difference. Virai placed her hand on his shoulder, a gesture of both respect and alliance. "Together, we will guide this dominion. Together, we will protect both our worlds. And perhaps, in time, you will understand the full strength of the bond you chose." Evan felt a warmth in his chest. He had chosen the path of understanding, and it had brought him this far. He knew challenges would continue, dangers would arise, and enemies like Jules would never disappear completely. But he also knew that humans, with courage and insight, could face any challenge. The shuttle crew would return to Earth eventually. But for now, Evan was a part of something larger than himself. He was a bridge between worlds, a symbol of courage and choice. And in the quiet moments, when the stars stretched endlessly before them, he felt hope, a rare, human hope that perhaps even the greatest dangers could be met with wisdom, loyalty, and heart. Evan Carter had chosen not to fight, but to understand. And in doing so, he had changed the fate of an empire, and proved that even in the most powerful galaxy, humans could be heroes. As the stars shimmered, he stood beside the Empress, looking forward to a future shaped not by fear, but by choice, courage, and trust. And for the first time since arriving in this alien world, he felt truly ready for whatever lay ahead.